Thank you all for joining us tonight. We're doing Bible study, and we are going to start in 1 Samuel 17. We've been talking about communication for a couple of weeks now. We'll continue on with that and trying to benefit and bless our communication with, husband, wife, with our kids, with our moms and dads, siblings, bosses, co-workers, neighbors, all that stuff. This is one of those that hits on every one of the cylinders, every one of the things that we struggle with at times. And so I thought we would look tonight, because one of the cool things to me is, does anybody here remember a Major League Baseball pitcher named Jim Abbott? Anybody remember that name? Okay. I thought Jenny might, because she's from Michigan and he was a UM guy, and he pitched, and he was born without a right hand. No right hand, just a nub here. And yet, born that way, these are his stats. He was, in 1988, he was Big Ten athlete, that's the conference, Big Ten conference, athlete of the year at Michigan. He won the James E. Sullivan Award as top amateur athlete in the United States. He was an Olympic gold medalist. He was selected 8th overall by the California Angels in 1988, and he was added to their pitching rotation without pitching one inning in the minor league, so he went straight to the majors. And in 1991 was his best year. He came in third in the Cy Young voting. That's the highest award you can get as a pitcher. And he played 10 seasons in the major leagues, and he won 87 games. I tell you that for a guy that didn't have a hand on one, right? So he would put the glove under the arm, take the ball, throw it, then put the glove back on to catch every single pitch. And we're not talking about, like, if you guys knew somebody who was playing in the elementary league out here, in your town or whatever, and they did that, you'd be like, wow, that's amazing, that little kid can do that. But we're talking about getting to high school ball, then to college ball, and not just being on the team. Actually, he was Big Ten Athlete of the Year. He was a gold medalist on the Olympic team in baseball. Then he was drafted in 8th overall. There's back then there was probably 30 rounds of baseball draft, and he was drafted 8th pick overall. Went straight to the major leagues and played for 10 seasons with one hand. And so the question becomes, and everybody here would go, man, what kind of parents did that guy have, right? What kind of brothers and sisters did he have? What kind of spouse did he have, or whatever. And the reason I say that is I want to know what words, what communication, the ideas and principles that they used to be able to make someone believe that they could do that, right? Because when that child, and all of you that are school teachers, that there are certain kids who have certain limitations, and the parents think their ceiling is here. The teachers think their ceiling is here. Their friends think their ceiling is here. You ain't going to amount to much. You're not going to accomplish a whole lot. You're not going to be this. You're not going to be that. And yet a kid with one hand, somebody said, oh, I can teach you to play baseball. And I'm sure when they first said that, everybody went, are you kidding me? Play baseball? And actually, he was also in high school a star quarterback. So he played football with one arm. And play quarterback, one hand. So I want us to look at some of these things. And there's a passage, and we've covered this before, but look with me, because I want you to see what goes on in 1 Samuel 17. And let's pick up in verse 28. I preached part of this just a few weeks ago while I was going on vacation. I did Bible study online. And this is David and Goliath. But I want you to look at the communication that goes on and what David still was able to accomplish, all right? So David walks up. Why is he there? You know why he's at the battle in the first place? Do what? He was bringing lunch to everybody. His dad sent him, and it's kind of, maybe you've done this in parenting, is you come up with a plausible excuse to send somebody to spy, right? You want to know, CNN and Fox News and all those are not there at the battle, so you don't have any word, unless you got a carrier pigeon that somebody's sending you back and forth, you don't have any word of what's going on. And he has, some of his kids are in this battle. And then we're talking about David's dad, right? Jesse. And so he sends David, the youngest, and he's just a boy, and he says, and like Kinsey said, he takes some lunch. Just takes him a basket. And so he goes and he delivers the food, and this is the response that he gets from his brother. One of his brothers says this, and this is communication, right? Verse 28, when Eliab, David's oldest brother, so he's the oldest of the 8, says, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here, and with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. And David's response is, now what have I done, said David. Can I even speak? He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. So that was interaction 1 right there. It was with his brother. It was with his family. And if you, in your household, as a elementary school person, middle school person, high school person, college person, and you said, you're sitting around the dinner table eating wonderful chicken like we had tonight, right? And you say, my dream is to do this. You know that somebody in your family is going to say something positive about it. Somebody's going to go, that's awesome, that's wonderful. And somebody's going to say what? You're not going to amount to an anthill. Come on, you can't do that. I know you. You'll quit before you ever, whatever it is. Somebody's going to be negative. And it's his oldest brother that is negative. And the problem with that is that may be the brother he looks up to. You know what I'm saying? He's the baby, and which they, we could sit here and have a whole lesson on oldest children, middle children, babies, that kind of stuff, and how they're treated and how their outlook on life is and all that. But here he is, and this first interaction is negative, and it's from his own family. So we look at the next line there in verse 32. It said, David said to Saul. Now Saul is king. Okay, so and this tells you how desperate Saul is, right? Is that Saul's willing to, we would say Saul's humble. He's willing to talk to anybody, right? Actually, he's just looking for anybody that's willing to take it, because it's kind of like the captain going down with the ship, is that the buck stops with him. They're liable to send Saul out there to fight him, right? So Saul's looking for any opportunity, any option other than himself. And it says, David said to Saul, let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him. So David's volunteering. He says, Saul replied, you're not able to go out against this Philistine and fight. You're only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth. But David said to Saul, your servant's been keeping his father's sheep. Oh, there's a good first line, right? I've been watching sheep, right? But, so what's the second interaction like? Another guy's negative. This is the king. This is the government. This is somebody of power and wealth, somebody who's experienced. And let's say, whoever's wanting to be in the military, it's a general talking to you. It's a major. It's a colonel, not in your family. It's somebody when you go, my dream is to do this. And they go, they spit on those dreams. Because Saul said, you can't do it. You're too young. Second interaction, right? All right, so let's watch the third interaction here. Because Saul comes around to the idea, tries to dress him in some armor, get him to look the part of a warrior, right? And that doesn't work out. And then when we get down a little bit further, in verse 41, it says, meanwhile, the Philistine with his shield bearer in front of him kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. And then David said to, and I'm going to stop there for a second. Now my enemy. Okay, so I got asked to play softball on a travel team. Softball, not baseball. Softball. This is when I was in college near the end. And we got to ride on like a Greyhound bus, big, nice charter bus. And we had matching uniforms, 2 or 3 different kinds. We had bags that matched. We had matching shoes, all that kind of stuff, because we were a really good softball team. And we walked out on the field, and we were playing a team from Upper East Tennessee, and they were all wearing blue jeans out on the softball field. They had on regular shoes. They didn't have on any cleats. They didn't have on any tennis shoes. They just had on shoes. And they had on hats like they had just got off work, and they all had a glove, and they proceeded to beat us about 27-2.
But you looked good.
Because we looked at them and we said, You come at us with sticks? What do you people think you are? You know, come on. This is unreal. No one's going to, it was like, hey, this is not going to work out. And all three of those interactions are negative, right? And so we would say, because God was with David, God fought the battle and he was able to defeat the guy that was 9 feet 9 inches tall, right? But we have to step back from that and we go, because I have told you all this, is that when we have a problem come up, we tend to want to go, I'll sit here in the chair, Lord. You go fix that. You go take care of it. And God goes, nope. You go, I'll be with you. I ain't going to let you sit here in the lazy boy recliner while I go out into the battle and fight Goliath. And so David goes, and here's the part. As we would say, okay, then God supernaturally gave him the ability to turn into Hulk, and then he defeated Goliath. Or that he was able to, supernatural powers, and he was able, and we go, yes, sort of. He helped fly that rock right where it needed to go, right? Yes, supernaturally, we do get that. But at the same time, David tells King Saul, when Saul asks him the question, he says, hey, you can't do this. And David goes, well, I've watched sheep, and I've done it at night, and I've killed lions and bears with this sling and a stone. He said, I've practiced. I have done these, and we would say, I'm going to use the words baby steps, but killing a lion or a bear is a big deal, right? I mean, that's a big deal. And so he's done that as a trial and error kind of thing, and he's accomplished that, and now he's going to fight pretty much the baddest cat around, right? Bad Leroy Brown standing over there, and boy, I'm really showing my age at this point, right? Is that he's standing over there on the hill, and he's yelling obscenities to the Jews and saying, you got anybody that can take me, send them over, Red Rover, right? And so David goes out there, 5 smooth stones, bang, knocks him down. He gives God all the credit, but at the same time, David was prepared for that moment. You see that? I do want you to see it. This is not anything that David did, but God prepared him for that moment. And David had done all of the background stuff, everything that needed to happen for that to happen. Okay. All right, so let's get back to the Jim Abbott thing. So let's talk about some of the communication that had to go on to get him to the point to where he believed he could do this, right? He believed that he could accomplish that because all of us are at that point, not to play baseball, for whatever we want to do, right? Anything that we want to accomplish. If Deborah said, I know you all know how old I am, but I'm going to become a writer. Some of us would go, good luck with that. You're too old to write. No. Is she? No. I mean, I'm being serious when I said that, is that I've had somebody in the church in Knoxville who his wife died and he was late 70s, and he said, I never got my undergraduate degree. I'm going to go to Bethel University and get that. And everybody went, you're old, right? And he just went, I don't have anything else to do. Might as well. I want to finish my degree. And they gave him some money. He fit in a category they didn't have a lot of students of, right? And so he got to go over there, and he became the guy on campus. They advertised him on everything because he got his degree at 70 whatever years old. He's the oldest student to ever graduate from there. And so, but everybody sitting at the tables would say, that's not possible. He's not going to be able to accomplish that. He's not going to be able to pay attention. He's not going to be able to have the energy level to go to all these classes, do all this studying and work in groups with teenagers and all that. And he accomplished it. So how did Jim Abbott get to that point? What kinds of things must have gone on? And I'm going to use biblical examples, right? So the first one has to be, there was somebody that was telling him that they loved him. And there was nothing in it for them. Do you understand what I mean by that? Is that there's times that I go, Jill, I love you. Will you make me a sandwich? Right? Jill, will you go out to the mailbox and get the mail? Jill, will you go? Right? Is there some benefit to me when I say those words? But actually, have you ever had somebody tell you that they love you and you knew right away that they meant it? And how did that make you feel? I'm not talking about prom night or nothing like that. I'm just talking about that somebody looked you in the face and they said, I love you. And there was nothing in it for them. They're not trying to get you to buy anything. They're not trying to get you to be on their side. They're not trying to win an argument. They're not trying to, none of that. They just tell you that. And so at its simplest form, just to have somebody say those words, it's one of the 5 love languages that Gary Chapman always uses, but there's something powerful just in using those words. I love you. And so we move on from there to, and I think these will go, there's about 8 of them, but the next one would be encouragement. Now, encouragement meaning, now you guys know, because I've coached for so many years, one of the things that bothers me is that a kid will walk out there, he'll be holding the bat upside down, he'll have his helmet turned around backwards, he'll go up to the plate, strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, he turns around crying, and the parents are going, way to go, Timmy, way to go, you did so awesome, way to go, right? And I'm like, no, we need to teach this kid so that he has a chance to improve. So it means he's going to have to deal with, hey, this was not what I wanted, right? We can't just be, if I'm sitting here and I just go out there, I can do this. No, we're going to turn that bat around. We're going to learn how to stand in the box. We're going to have to learn to watch the ball. All of those things, that there is cheering type of encouragement, right? And then there's inspiration kind of encouragement. Inspiration being that, there have been coaches who have shown the movie Hoosiers lately to their teams during the NCAA tournament before the games start. Why would they do that? Get them pumped up. It's kind of like with Nathan, what's going to inspire him to greatness? And so there's cheering, but then there's also that idea that, hey, look what this person, very similar to you, did this and was able to accomplish, right? Look at this. Watch this person do this. And so, Nick V Ministries. Nick doesn't have, I can't remember his last name, but Sam will know who I'm talking about. He has no legs and no arms, and he is a motivational speaker, and he is phenomenal. He is a phenomenal speaker, and his outlook on life is unbelievable. And I mean, he sits there and makes fun of himself to some degree, but then at the same time goes, I'm more capable than all of you. Because I believe, I have faith that I can do anything. And so it is that kind of idea. So look with me at Hebrews 10. And we're going to flip around some in Old and New Testament here. But Hebrews 10, written by Paul. And it is verses 24 and 25. And it's laying out for us about the idea of the words that come out of our mouth. And it says, and let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. Is that you have to do this number. You have to go, who am I going to be in my life? Am I going to be a crab in a bucket? Crab in a bucket just means I want everybody to be less than me. I want everybody to be on my level or lower so I feel good or better about myself. That's crab in a bucket. Or do I want to be the person who is constantly building other people up and pushing them higher? It's the old, I was always, as you can tell from my build, was the guy who went like this. All right, go ahead, I'll boost you, right? I'm having to live. Or if they said, let's make a pyramid, get on the bottom, Chris. It's that kind of thing. And that's not much fun, but actually what you accomplish is really great, right? It is incredible. And so the idea of us using our words to help people to get to a place where they never could, where they thought they couldn't get to is just amazing. I will say my wife is the best person that I know who does this because, we sit around tables like this a lot in the church, and this one little girl who was in our youth group who was by that time was like 19 years old. She was working at a retail store, and she had been working there since she was like 14, 15 years old, and she hated it. And so she was like an assistant manager, but she made like 5 cents more than minimum wage. It was that kind of situation where they just promoted her in title, and she just wasn't happy, didn't see a future there. And Jill goes, well, why don't you go to college? And she goes, I didn't do good in high school. And she goes, so? She goes, it's okay. She goes, you can get in college. They'll give you money to go to college. And so the girl's like, well, I don't know. College isn't for me. I'm one of those people. And Jill goes, let's just go down there tomorrow to the community college. Let's just go over, and it wasn't Columbia State, but it's just like Columbia State, right? Let's just go over there and see what they have to say. We'll go to the register. Because Jill had recently gone. And so the girl goes, well, I got to work tomorrow. And Jill goes, what day are you off? And she goes, I'm off on Thursday. She goes, let's go Thursday. So they went Thursday, and they go down there, and they go up in the registration person's office, and they're sitting down there, and they're, give us information. They fill out all those forms and everything. And the girl got signed up to go to college that day. That day, for the next semester, she was signed up to go, got money to pay for it, and went to college, and now is in banking. And you sit there and you go, okay, so this girl, if Jill had gone, bless your heart, I'm going to go get some tea, right? If she hadn't been that encourager, where would she have been today? We don't know, but Jill did her job. That idea of you can achieve more, and that'll affect your self-esteem. That'll affect everything about your life, how you feel about, finding the joy in your life. Okay, so the third one is teaching. And this is why I separated encouraging and teaching, is because in those moments when Timmy just struck out 2 times, 5 times, 10 times in a row, there has to be a teachable moment in there where Timmy's going to have to start listening, whether it's to an instructor in class about grades, whether it is to an Army person who's in boot camp telling you how to do stuff, a coach in this sport, a music person teaching you how to play an instrument. All of those people are experts that we have to learn to shut our mouths and listen to them. And then we try to do what they tell us to do. We practice those things in every one of those scenarios. And so what you find is the people who struggle are usually turned this way, talking to the person beside them, while the instructor expert is trying to teach them whatever it is. And they struggle and they fail and they go, that teacher hates me. That teacher doesn't like me. That whatever it is, and it's not us in the sense of this teachable moment. So somebody, watch this. Somebody had to teach Jim Abbott to put a glove on the hand that he had, and then to put it under his arm, and then throw the pitch in and put it back on before the guy hits the ball. Somebody had to teach him to do that. And then they had to teach him that you can do this in little middle school league, high school league, college league, pro league, and you have to believe that you can do it and do it faster and faster and faster and better and better. And oh, by the way, it's hard as heck to throw a strike anyway with 2 hands. You understand, right? In pressure situation, all of that. And he's doing it with 1 hand while he's trying to do all of these commotions to get it done. It's unbelievable. So there's the teachable moment. Now let's look, because there is, to me, and this is in parenting especially, and it's not as bad in the other situations, but in parenting, especially when your kids get older, one of the things I've learned is you can teach, but they better have asked you for that information first. Solicited versus unsolicited. Because I can follow my kids around, and if they don't want my advice, then I can go, what you really need to do is you need to do this. I mean, come on. If you're going to get ready, let me show you how to do, and they're just like, yeah, old man, walk away, right? I mean, it's that kind of thing. And so the solicited versus unsolicited. But let's say somebody is willing to listen to what you have to say. Look at Acts 18:24. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, and it's Acts 18. And this is cool because this is how the church works. This is how, there is no building. There's not a building back then. This is the churches are the people and how they're trying to accomplish something for Jesus. And so 18:24 is Paul has matched up with Priscilla and Aquila, who are married, and they are tent makers like him, and he's traveled about with them, and now he's left town, but they've stayed here, and it says in 24, it says, meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, that's Egypt, right, came to Ephesus, that's where Priscilla and Aquila are. He was a learned man with a thorough knowledge of the Scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and he spoke with great fervor and taught about Jesus accurately, though he knew only the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately. When Apollos wanted to go to Achaia, the brothers and sisters encouraged him and wrote to the disciples there to welcome him. When he arrived, he was a great help to those who by grace had believed, for he vigorously refuted the Jewish opponents in public debate, proving from the Scriptures that Jesus was the Messiah. Couldn't do that before he met Priscilla and Aquila, right? They explained it to him more clearly, and it was their touch in that moment, their physical interaction with him that took him to the next level. And we need to hear that because we tend to think lone wolf is a good thing. I'm a lone wolf. I'm a cockroach. I can survive all by myself. Don't need all you people. I can do this all by my lonesome. Don't need anybody. You're not going to hurt me. You're not going to, right? All those things that you hear. But in reality, to get where we want to be, Jim Abbott had to have a bunch of people around him, teaching him, training him, encouraging him, building him up, all of those things, right? So the next one is comforting. Okay, so I love you in spite of your shortcomings, whatever it was, the failures that you have. And, that can be, we can do that by our words, by our actions, our performance, whatever it might be. And that idea of, how do you feel when somebody comforts you? Right? Think about that for a minute. If you lose a ball game, right, that's one thing. Make an F on a test, that's one thing. But what is comfort? Okay, in my family, you can say yours is however. In my family, here, have some nanner pudding. Here, have a piece of cake, right? Have a piece of cake. Here, let me make you something, darling. Come on, here we go. I'm going to make you something, right? Is that there was, and we have that cliche, comfort food, right? Is that, here, have some mac and cheese. It's the best, right? And the idea being that we will be, somehow, endorphins will go off in our head with the taste buds and we'll go, I feel better, right? That kind of thing. Just in that moment. And yet, true comfort, flip over with me to Job 2. Because in reality, and I'm going to, make sure that I'll read you something. You stay in Job 2 for a second. I want to read to you from 1 Thessalonians 5. But 5:11 says, therefore encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you're doing. Okay? So we're talking about building each other up, right? And then in those moments that when we're comforting somebody, we're still urging them forward. You understand that? Comfort doesn't mean, I told you that was what was going to happen. I told you you weren't smart enough. That's not comfort. Just because you're saying it in sweet words and have your arm around them, that is not comfort. Comfort means that it's going to be okay. We learn from this, right? Whatever it is, we learn from this. Remember last week we talked about that there has to be this evaluation that goes on. What are the results? We did all this stuff. We practiced. We went into the game. We did this, whatever. What were the results? And then to be able to evaluate, to make adjustments, to make changes that will help us. And in any situation, whatever it is that's going on. Now, all of you all, if you've ever worked in a business somewhere, you go in and there's that newlywed period. I did sales for, a living in Jacksonville. And for a period of time, they pay you a salary, and it doesn't matter if you sell anything or not. But when that goes away and that honeymoon period ends, and they go, you no longer are going to get paid anything by us. You're going to get the commissions on what you sell. That changes everything. That shifts everything, and we have to make adjustments because the first 3 months we could have been playing golf every day, as opposed to preparing to go and be a salesperson for whatever. So you can see what I'm talking about there. Okay, so Job 2, watch this in terms of comfort. Okay, so verse 9, let's pick up there. We're looking for comfort. All this bad stuff's happened to Job. He's got, he's had people in his family who've passed away, kids and stuff. He has had boils. He's had all this terrible, awful stuff go on. And in verse 9, his wife comes in, again, like David's brother, oldest brother, and she says, his wife said to him, are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die! Exclamation mark. Dang. Okay, I've been beat down. I mean beat down. Job has been beat down. Job is at, suicide is a step up from there, right, where he is. It's a bad spot. And his wife is like, just go ahead and kill yourself. It's that bad. Curse God and die. That's what he's getting from his wife, his spouse. So look at the next little bit, though. Verse 10, he replied, you're talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble? In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. And here we come. When Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, heard about all the troubles that had come upon him, they set out from their homes and met together by agreement to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. When they saw him from a distance, they could hardly recognize him. They began to weep aloud, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. Ministry of presence. Okay? So, when I was at Tusculum, Ronnie Pittenger had been there for 20-something years at that point, ended up staying there almost 40 years as their pastor. And every single person that you met would say his best quality was he had a ministry of presence. He was at our kids' graduations, their births, their ball games, their concerts. He was at our house for cookouts. He was, right? Is that he was there. And sometimes, my wife would love to come home at night and for me to sit down next to her, put my hand in hers or my arm around her, and just sit there and be quiet. And she would sit there for 20 or 30 minutes and just be quiet, just sitting in that moment. And then she would go, "Can I tell you about my day?" And I would go. And she hopes that I go, "Well, of course." Most of the time I'm going, "Yeah, go ahead. I'm listening. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead." Right? Is that ministry of presence, just to listen to me, just to hear what I'm going to say. And that, that ministry of presence is what his 3 friends did in the beginning. And that is sometimes the first step for the healing, right? Is that presence, that moment. It's a place where we can regather, right? Where we can kind of go, okay, tomorrow's going to come and I still have to go to work. Tomorrow I'm still going to be married. Tomorrow I'm still going to have kids. Tomorrow I'm still got that exam that I got to deal with, right? Or whatever it is. It's just that kind of regathering moment, and we need our friends there in those moments. Sometimes just to be quiet, just to sit there. So the next one is listening. And again, this is not just all of us being quiet. Now we're going to listen to them rant and whine and be negative. And we're going to, and I say that, those are 3 bad words, but the real good word is we're going to sit and listen to them process all this information that they just had hit them, right? Can you imagine, what do you think game 1 was like for Jim Abbott? Well, it was outstanding. I think he pitched a no-hitter. No, I don't think so. I don't think that happened, right? I think he dropped the glove like 9 times probably, right? As he was trying to do this. May have just pitched 1 inning. Maybe pitched 1 batter. I don't even know. But you know that there has to be somebody that, as you're sitting in the dugout, somebody over there, the coach or mom and dad or somebody has to be listening to, "I want to go home. I want to quit. This is stupid. I don't like this game. I'd rather be playing soccer. I've got 2 feet," right? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Is there had to be those conversations that went on. And we have to listen to some of that. I mean, it doesn't mean that it goes on for weeks. We can cut it off. But I'm just saying we have to listen to some of that, because the idea is the teapot venting, right? That it does that because it's boiling, and then hopefully we can move it off the burner, and then it does what, right? It stops that. But we want to make sure that it's not the, every time my grandmother did canning, it always scared me to death when she started getting that. The pressure cooker was just like, it's in there and it's doing this number, right? You can see the top of it doing this number. And she's like, "Might blow." No, I don't want to know that it might blow, that kind of thing. But just that listening, moving, processing to get to the next part. All right, and then now we get to, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. James 1:19 and 20, okay? So then let's talk about number 7, and this one's a killer here, guys. Speaking the hard truth. All right, so if I tell you that I love you, and yet I never say anything negative to you, do I love you? Now, let me. I'm not talking about the Chris Caldwell pessimism. Hey, your hair looks weird today. You look fat in that dress. Whatever it is, those terrible, awful things. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that you see your kid running with scissors across the room, right? Are you going to say something? Well, I love you. I think you should express yourself. You should live your life and do what you feel is best. Going up and down the stairs with scissors. Go ahead. Right? There has to be a time at some point where we say, "Stop," or "No, don't." There has to be those moments, and you don't have to raise your voice when you say it, but there has to be those moments where we speak that truth. And just go with me for a second. Look at John 21. Okay, John 21 is Peter and Jesus. And we read this and we go, this is such a nice conversation. They're having a meal on the beach. They're eating, Jimmy and Heidi are getting ready to go to the beach and get to eat seafood. And that's what they're doing right here. They're eating seafood together on the beach. And man, this sounds awesome. And Jesus is asking the questions in John 21. He looks over at Peter and it says, when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John. This is verse 15, 21:15. I'm so sorry, I didn't say that. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, he said, you know that I love you. Okay, hang on a second. Because we're just one page over from where 3 different times they go, hey, aren't you a follower of Jesus? And Peter goes, nope, I think you got me confused with somebody. It's not me. No, it wasn't me. Not me. And then the 3rd time that he does it, he's calling down he's cursing about it. And then the rooster crows, right? So 3 times he said he didn't know Jesus, didn't want to be associated with Jesus, that kind of thing. And then Jesus is asking him these questions 1 page over. And he says, do you love me? And his response is, yes, of course. Yes, Lord, he said, you know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my lambs. Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He answered, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said, take care of my sheep. The 3rd time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was, what's that word? Hurt. Because Jesus asked him the 3rd time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my sheep. Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you're old, you'll stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, follow me. Goodness gracious. Not a fun conversation to have. But here's the part. Here's the part that's cool to me. Somebody offends us, somebody does something really detrimental to us, says something really awful about us, lies about us, gets us fired from a job, whatever. A lot of us, I'm never speaking to that person again. I don't even want to see them again. Get out of my sight. We're no longer friends. And yet Peter does this and Jesus is reconciling him. He's taking him back into the fold like the sheep that's gone astray. And he is actually reinstating him as leader of the group. I mean, that's what he's doing there. And that's not an easy conversation to have. And Jesus is having that conversation in front of all of them on purpose. Right? Is why he's having this conversation. So there's no debate about it. There's another place in John 8:1 where a woman is brought to Jesus who committed adultery. Flip over there with me because there's so many people who want to argue and fuss and fight in seminary about this particular passage. But to me, it's no different. There's 50 other places that you can find this where Jesus is talking about this. It's 8:1, and this is the woman's brought in adultery. And look at actually verse 10. So this is the end of the story, right? Is that he says, whoever is without sin cast the first stone. You guys have heard this particular, right? This "Oh brother, where art thou" quote at this point, right? Is they even use that? Is that you without sin cast the first stone, and they all walk away. And Jesus helps her up, and he says these words to her. He says, at this. Those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. This is verse 9. Verse 10, Jesus straightened up and asked her, woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? And then she says, no one, sir, she said. And you're thinking at that point, this is you sitting in the principal's office and you think you're getting off. Right? You're like, he's being nice, the principal, but she's being kind to me. She put her arm around me and walked me out the door here. So I'm not going to get in trouble. And then Jesus says these last few words here where he says, she says, no one, sir, she said. Then neither do I condemn you, Jesus declared. And she's like, yes, neither do I condemn you. Yes, yes, yes. And then he says, go now and leave your life of sin. Ouch. Ouch. Okay. It's the don't do this again. Can you see that this is what's causing you to stumble? Can you see that this is what's causing your life to be such a mess? Turn from that. The word repentance, 180 degrees the other direction, right? Move from that and go follow me. That's the point that he's making there. So that's speaking the truth. And you guys know that Ephesians 4 in 14, Paul writing to the church in Ephesus says those words. You need to speak the truth in love, right? Grow up is the word that he says there. Grow up and speak the truth in love. Because so many of us let stuff just go on and we never open our mouth. We let stuff go on in our families. We let stuff go on in our marriage. I'm just not going to say anything. Out of sight, out of mind. I'm just going to push it down, repress it, all that. We've talked about that, right? The last one is perspective. The perspective in that, why are we saying these words? Why are we going to let these words come out of our mouth? And the reason is just to make sure that we know the eternal stuff is much more important. Okay, so I've grew up at baseball fields, basketball courts, football fields, those kind of things. That's what I grew up doing. How many times have you been to those places and you've seen a kid that's this tall and a parent going, "You're a loser, man, you're so stupid, how could you do that? What were you thinking?" Right? How many times have you seen that? And you go, okay, so I'm going to win this this battle, because this kid is upset, right? This kid is, I have belittled him. He's crying now. He knows he's done wrong, and I have beaten him down. But I've lost the war, right? Because he's going to go home and throw all that stuff in the trash and never come back, right? He's never going to play again, ever. And he's going to hate me as a person. And if I'm the dad, man, it's even worse, right? Because we're going to take all that home with us, right? Do you see that point? Is that the idea of what's important? And if we start laying out and we're communicating about, okay, so when my kids grow, as they grow, what's important? And we go, okay, the eternal things are the most important, the life and death things. And then what, right? And when I say life and death, you go, I don't want my kids playing with matches. I don't want playing with guns. I don't want those things going on. We have to be able to, it's not a comment on guns, but you know what I'm saying? I'll let my kid walk around and, hey, this kind of thing when he's 5 years old. So we have to, okay, I'm going to put these things in perspective. These are the priorities in my life. And then what's really important is I want them to grow up to know Jesus and have a relationship with him. I want them to, for self-esteem purposes, to grow in their knowledge in school and to be able to pass whatever the tests and to learn to solve problems and work together and all those things that come about. I have that list of things. That's the perspective part, is the why. Why am I doing all this? Because it's not if you're sitting there going, okay, what I really want is I want Selah to go to Belmont University so she can be the next Taylor Swift, so that she can make a lot of money, and then she can have a place for us to stay and live with her, and she'll be famous, and that will reflect good on us because as her parents, we got her to that place. That sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Yeah. And yet, that is what a lot of people are doing these days in terms of how their families operate. And so, whether it is... I actually have a friend that in middle school was doing 2,000 push-ups, 2,000 sit-ups, 2,000 jumping jacks, and running miles and miles with his kid every single day to train him for an athletic career that never, came about. So we have to get to the point where I'm sitting here and I look at these things and I go, these are all biblical principles, and I go, man, can you imagine if we can just grab hold of that and raise up Jim Abbott's, right? The people that the world would look at and say, hey, you're broken. Because we all are, right? Man, you're broken, but you can do this. Watch this. Let's do this. Let's be creative here. Let's do this. Watch this. Will you listen to this? You can do this. You can accomplish this. God is with you. You can kill a 9-foot, 9-inch giant because God is with you, and you've trained and you've practiced. This is possible. And when we can get to that point, we can do anything. Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the night, and I pray that we would be the people, I don't want to say in the shadows, but the people behind the scenes, the people that are lifting others higher, that are encouraging them, that are moving them forward, doing whatever it takes to help them, whether it is up out of a pit that they've been in, or whether it is to higher things and to greater things, whether it is finding joy in their lives or finding their true love or finding their purpose, whatever it might be, that you would help us to be able to do that and be those kind of people with our words and with our communication. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless y'all. Thank you for joining us tonight.